Give you a format that you can use that might be helpful, because we have some mentors and mentor coordinators who have one. Most people have at least two. Some guys this year have 3 students. So when you're doing that, you're running a small group, and we want to give you a format to do that successfully. So in our program we have what we call teams. A normal team, now not everyone fits into this, but just normally this is what a team looks like. A mentor coordinator with a couple mentors, and then those students. So on mentor coordinator nights, or connect nights, the mentor coordinator connects with those mentors. On a regular basis, we have those mentors and those students connect at program, and we run little small groups. And you have like a meet spot in the gathering place that you go, you meet, and that's what a team looks like, okay? So that's helpful when we talk about when you will run these small groups, right? So mentors, like I mentioned, you have more than one student a lot of times, or sometimes you have a one-to-one, but they bring a friend, or sometimes one of the people in your team doesn't show up, one of the mentors, and you have to take their students, and suddenly you're running a small group. So this is good for everyone. Mentor coordinators, on Connect nights, you're meeting with 2 or 3 mentors, and you're running a small group. And so here's kind of, to start out, the 4 Ps. Brian created this, and I think it's an easy way to kind of start to talk about it. So why do we do it? It is, one, a necessity with, we just don't have a billion volunteers, so we can't do one-to-one all across the board. The other thing is, I think there is a myth out there that small groups are not as valuable as one-to-one. And I believe if you can do it correctly, a lot of times small groups have something even more to offer at times than one-to-one, but is at least as valuable, all right? And yeah, and another thing that it does is foster peer connection. When it's just you and your student, sometimes that student needs help connecting with other students. When you're running a small group, there's kind of a natural peer connection that happens. Preparation. We've said this many times, take a pause before you come in, pray, gather yourself. I think to be centered before you kind of jump into what you're going to be doing for the night is important. One night I was running a small group and these kids were just being crazy animals, and I remember just pounding the table and I was like, listen! And I probably didn't prepare correctly for that night. Pounding the table, it's not like I'm the youth leader. I'm pounding the table, not prepared. Okay, so be prepared as best you can, kind of think through the night. Placement. We have this weird kind of problem where we do all our student mentor time a lot of times in the sanctuary, and they're like, the chairs are right across. So especially if you have 3 guys and you sit on one end, you're like, hey, over there, how was your night? You know, it's hard to do. So I just think you have to think through, like, does that mean you go sit on the floor? We have chairs out in the sanctuary where you can kind of put them in a circle. One thing I think is very helpful, and you can choose what you want on this, is to get everyone on the same level. If you have people laying, sitting all over the place, it just is more difficult. In a small group, same level, try to be able to see everyone. I think that's important. Placement, kind of thinking through that. And then finally, position. When you're running a small group, it is your job to run the small group. Like, you take that group somewhere, right? And so I think sometimes we don't want to take the lead, or we don't want to push kids in a certain way. But in a small group, like, it's your job to create conversation and try as best you can. And it, obviously, I think you've heard us say it many times. You knock on the window, it doesn't always work. Sometimes kids just don't want to engage. But it's our job as small group leaders to try to take that group somewhere. So, how does that happen? We have a process that we use. Some of you may want to use it. We really encourage you to. We think it works. I would say I've been doing it for years and years. It works if you do it and you commit to this as best you can. And some of you have your own style, and maybe you can integrate that into this, but we're just going to start with this process, and then listen, because we're going to go into it and you guys are going to practice it. All right? So first, check in. So when you sit in a small group, so I'm here, students are here, and I run one of these every night with kids who maybe don't have a mentor, come in late or whatever to the program and don't have a mentor. So I kind of have kids that I mentor and run a small group with. And we'll start checking in. So what that means is you give your name, you rate your week 1 to 10, 1 being the worst week ever, 10 being the best week ever, and anywhere in between, right? And sometimes I'll say, depending on the students, if I have kids who are just 5, middle of the road, I'll say no 5s. You gotta tell me one way or the other. It can be 5.5, but no 5s. And then they give me 3 feelings, all right? 3 feelings from last week to this week, just to check in. So what are some feelings that you had? Anything that happened, whatever sticks out. And a way that I've kind of done this at Next Gen is I say, hey, give me 3 feelings in general, and then, hey, we just covered a topic tonight, right? We just talked about parables. Give me 2 or 3 feelings about that. So then you kind of divide it. You divide it programmatically, a topical thing, and then their life, right? Because when you mentor, we give you these questions. We just talked about a subject, and your job is to talk about their life and be there to support them, but as best you can, kind of integrate what we just talked about and help them think about that too, as best you can, right? Not every student wants to do that, but that's kind of what we're asking you to do. So that's what check-in is. Again, name, rate your week, 1 to 10, 3 feelings about your relational life, like just your life, and then 3 about the subject that we just covered, okay? And then each student will say whether they want to take time, which taking time means that they'll talk about the feelings. So they just say like 3 basic feelings, happy, sad, angry, frustrated, whatever. And then they'll say, yeah, I'll take some time. I'll talk tonight about that. Or they'll say, no, I don't want to. Okay? But what time looks like is they'll share, and then the leader helps people connect to what they're sharing. So what I would say about that is if a student is going through a divorce and they're really upset, maybe you don't have everyone in your group has gone through a divorce, but everyone in your group has felt sad, right? And so what I try to do as a leader of a small group is boil it down to the feeling and then have other students connect to that feeling. What's it felt like when you felt hopeless, or like there's nothing, like it's not going to get better? Anyone else felt that before? What was that like for you? Does that what he just said, is that kind of